Hey everybody, debt consolidation. I bet most of us have seen those ads everywhere. The ones promising lower payments and like total financial freedom. Well, today we're taking a deep dive with chapter 29 of the complete book on bankruptcy. It's by Peter Francis Geraci.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll break down what's real and what's just hype to help you make those, smart money choices. Because let's face it, there's some shady stuff out there. Even straight up scams.
Absolutely. And Geraci, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He basically says a lot of those debt settlement or bill consolidation programs, they're just scams, preying on people who are already having a tough time.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, hold on a sec. How can a program that says it'll help you get out of debt actually be a scam?
It's all about who's really pulling the strings. Geraci points out that many of these organizations are actually backed by, get this, the creditors themselves, like the very people you owe money to.
So instead of actually helping you become debt-free, their goal is to keep you in debt longer.
Right. It's all about those fees and kickbacks. The longer they string you along, the more money they make.
Wow. Okay, so what are some red flags? Like, how can we spot these shady programs?
Geraci says watch out for company names that sound too good to be true, or even just plain ridiculous. Like, if it sounds made up or unprofessional, steer clear.
Like, they're not even trying to hide it.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so if these debt consolidation things are so risky, what are the alternatives? Geraci has this thing called the $5,000 rule. What's that all about?
This is where things get interesting. Geraci says that if you owe less than $5,000, credit counseling from a real nonprofit could be an okay route. They might be able to get you lower interest rates and kind of combine your debts into one payment. But
Okay,
here's the catch. If you owe more than $5,000, it gets more complicated.
so $5,000 is like a magic number. What makes it different?
Well, Geraci says that if you're over that $5,000 mark, your monthly payments will probably be like at least $200. And you could be paying for years and years just to barely make a dent in what you actually owe.
Okay.
And think about it. If you owe way more than that, those payments could drag on forever. He actually calls it financially pointless.
Wow. Financially pointless. That's rough. But I guess I get it. Rent's going up, groceries, everything. Our paychecks don't always keep up with that.
Exactly. You might be able to swing those payments now, but what happens when life throws you a curveball? Like your rent goes up or you get hit with a medical bill, suddenly those payments are a huge burden, and all that money you've already paid, it feels like, wasted.
So debt consolidation isn't always the answer, and those programs can be risky. What does Geraci suggest instead? He talks about bankruptcy. Is that what he's advocating for?
Well, he presents bankruptcy not as this terrible thing, but as a legal tool, a way to actually get debt relief. He even calls it a fresh start, a chance to kind of wipe the slate clean and rebuild your finances.
I think a lot of people see bankruptcy as this, scary thing. It's like a last resort.
It's understandable. There's definitely a stigma, right? But Geraci really challenges that view. He's worked with tons of people who were initially terrified of bankruptcy, but it turned out to be the best option for them. He even says bankruptcy can help improve your credit score faster than you think.
Really, I always thought bankruptcy, destroyed your credit for years.
It's a common myth. Let me explain. Okay. When you file for bankruptcy, a lot of your debt just vanishes. Poof. So it lowers your debt-to-income ratio, and that ratio, it basically tells lenders how much debt you have compared to how much you make. And having a lower ratio is good for your credit score. It shows lenders that you're more financially stable and less risky.
Oh, I see. So it's like a reset button for your finances, giving you a clean slate to rebuild your credit.
Exactly. It's like hitting refresh on your finances.
This is a game changer. So we've talked about debt consolidation, the $5,000 rule, and even bankruptcy. But how do I know what's right for my situation?
That's the million-dollar question, but Geraci gives us some really helpful things to think about. He says, before you sign up for any debt relief program, ask yourself some tough questions.
Like what?
Like, is this company really looking out for me, or are they just trying to profit from my debt? Are they going to have access to my bank account? Can I really afford those payments if things get tighter next year? And maybe the most important question, have I looked at all my options, like even bankruptcy, before making this decision?
Those are some really good questions, but where can someone go for unbiased advice? Who can they actually trust with all this?
Geraci really believes in talking to a licensed bankruptcy attorney. They have a legal obligation to give you the best advice for your specific situation. Getting real legal advice, it's crucial before making any big decisions about your debt.
He's got a point. Expert advice seems like a no-brainer. Speaking of which, doesn't Geraci offer free consultations at his firm?
He does. Geraci Law offers free consultations. It's a fantastic opportunity to get personalized advice from experienced attorneys. They've helped so many people find relief from debt and get back on track financially.
That's incredible. Well, this has been a real eye-opener. We've learned that a debt consolidation isn't always the quick fix, it seems, and there's some real risks to watch out for. But we've also learned about options like bankruptcy, which might not be as scary as we thought.
Totally. It's all about having the information and being empowered to make the best choices for your future, right?
Absolute.
Your financial future.
Well said. We've only just scratched the surface here, though. Stick around for part 2 of this episode where we'll dive even deeper into the pros and cons of bankruptcy and explore other smart ways to manage debt. All right, we're back, and I want to keep talking about bankruptcy. It can seem like a big, scary thing, but Geraci really paints it in a different light. Like, he calls it a fresh start, right?
Yeah, he actually shares stories about clients who were like totally against bankruptcy at first. They felt like it meant they'd failed somehow, but after going through it, they realized it was the best decision they could have made, like a total reset for their finances.
That makes sense, hitting the reset button. But isn't bankruptcy usually a last resort? How can it be, like, a good thing?
That's a great question, and it's a super common misconception. Juracy actually points out some big advantages to bankruptcy that are worth digging into. One thing he says is that it can actually help you recover your credit score faster than you'd think. A lot of people think filing for bankruptcy trashes your credit for years, but that's not always true.
Wait, so it's not like this automatic 10-year bad credit sentence?
Nope, not at all. In fact, Juracy says that a lot of his clients qualify for things like home mortgages not that long after filing for bankruptcy because their credit scores actually improve.
Whoa, that's wild. How does that even work?
It all comes back to that debt-to-income ratio. It's how much debt you have compared to how much you earn. When you file for bankruptcy, a lot of your debt is just wiped out, which makes that ratio way lower. And get this, a lower ratio is actually a good thing for your credit score. It basically tells lenders that you're more financially stable, less of a risk.
Oh, I see. So it's like you instantly become a better borrower because you've got less debt hanging over your head. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it makes sense when you put it that way.
Right, exactly. You're shedding all that extra financial weight. And the second big advantage Geraci talks about is that bankruptcy gives you some breathing room, like a chance to really get your finances in order. When you're not drowning in debt payments every month, you can start focusing on other financial goals, like saving for retirement or even a down payment on a house.
It's like taking a step back to move forward, addressing the root of the problem so you can build a stronger future.
Totally. And Geraci really hammers home this idea that you have options. You don't have to just suffer in silence or feel trapped by debt. There are resources and legal solutions that can help you take control of your finances.
He seems really passionate about making sure people know they're not alone and there's help available. It's easy to feel ashamed or embarrassed about being in debt, but he's saying it's okay to ask for help.
Definitely. He wants to empower people to take charge of their finances and make informed decisions. But I think it's also important to remember that bankruptcy isn't a magic solution. It might not be the right choice for everyone.
For sure. Are there other things people should consider before making a decision about bankruptcy? What about those who aren't ready to take that step? What are their options?
You're right, it's not one size fits all, and Geraci actually warns against just jumping into any debt relief program without thinking it through. He talks about those slick promises some of these debt consolidation companies use to reel people in with all their misleading language and tactics. It can be really deceptive.
Can you give us some specific examples of what to watch out for?
Yeah, he specifically mentions companies that say they're backed by creditors themselves. They use phrases like helping you get out of debt or achieving financial freedom. But like we were saying earlier, their motives might not be so pure. Their interests could actually be with the creditors, not the people they're supposedly helping.
Right, because the creditors want to get paid, and keeping people in debt longer equals more profits for them. It's like a total betrayal of trust when these companies act like they're on your side when their real goal is to make money off of people's struggles.
Exactly. It's all about the bottom line for them. Geraci also warns about companies that make those crazy claims or promise unrealistic results. Like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It's like those weight loss ads that promise you can drop 30 pounds in a week with a zero effort. There's a catch. So we got to be smart, do our research, and ask the right questions before trusting anyone with our money.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your financial well-being.
So besides bankruptcy, are there other ways people can manage their debt? What if they're not ready for that level of intervention?
There are, and Geraci mentions a few alternatives in the chapter. One thing he suggests is negotiating with your creditors directly. It basically means contacting each creditor and trying to work out a payment plan that fits your budget. Maybe lowering your interest rate, extending your repayment terms, or even putting payments on hold for a bit.
That sounds kind of intimidating. Do you think most people can do that on their own? Or would they need some professional help?
I think it depends on how comfortable you are with that kind of thing and how complex your situation is. Some people are totally fine negotiating on their own, but others might prefer to get guidance from a credit counselor or a debt management agency. A credit counselor can help you create a budget, understand your options, and even negotiate with your creditors on your behalf. A debt management agency can go even further, like consolidating your debts into one monthly payment.
So there are different levels of support depending on what people need and their situation.
Exactly. Geraci also mentions debt consolidation through a balance transfer credit card as another option. Basically, you transfer your balances from your high interest cards to a new card with a lower interest rate. It can save you a ton of money on interest charges.
That sounds pretty smart. Are there any downsides to doing that?
Well, it can definitely be a helpful strategy, but you got to be aware of the potential pitfalls. First, make sure you really understand the terms of the balance transfer offer. Some cards have those transfer fees, and that low intro interest rate might expire after a while, so you got to watch out for that. And second, you really need to be disciplined about paying down that balance on the new card ASAP. Otherwise, you could end up racking up even more interest charges.
So it's not a magic bullet, huh? It takes a solid plan and commitment to pay that debt down aggressively.
Exactly. It's a tool that can be super helpful if you use it responsibly, but if you're not careful, it can backfire.
This has been incredibly informative. We've learned about bankruptcy, explored those alternatives like negotiating with creditors and balance transfers, and even touched on how to avoid those slick debt consolidation programs. As we wrap up this part of the conversation, what are your biggest takeaways?
What really stands out for me is Geraci's focus on getting solid legal advice before making any major decisions about your debt. He's a big advocate for consulting with a licensed bankruptcy attorney because they're legally bound to act in your best interest. And his firm, Geraci Law, they offer those free consultations, which makes getting legal advice accessible to everyone.
That's such a good point. We always hear about people getting taken advantage of by these companies promising quick and easy solutions. But it's important to remember that there are real professionals out there who genuinely want to help. It's all about finding the right people to guide you through these tricky situations.
For sure. Geraci's message is one of empowerment and hope. He wants people to know they have options and that they don't have to face these challenges alone.
Absolutely. It's about taking control of your financial well-being, making informed choices. We've covered a lot of ground in this discussion about debt consolidation, but we've just scratched the surface of Geraci's experience and insights. Stay tuned for the final part of this episode, where we'll dive into his personal journey and what led him to become such a strong advocate for people struggling with debt. All right, we're back for a final look at debt consolidation. We've talked about the risks of those programs, the power of bankruptcy, and even some alternative strategies, right? But now I want to learn more about Peter Francis Geraci himself. Like, what made him so passionate about helping people who are struggling with debt?
Yeah, his story is fascinating. He actually started out as a prosecutor, but then this life-changing event happened that made him shift his focus to helping people facing, really overwhelming debt.
Oh, wow. What happened? What made him change his whole path like that?
He saw firsthand how devastating debt can be for people. Families losing their homes, their cars, their sense of hope even. It really made him realize that he wanted to use his legal skills to help people in these tough situations.
So he went from prosecuting to defending people against, crushing debt.
Exactly. And he became known for having this really different approach to bankruptcy law. Instead of seeing it as punishment, he saw it as a way for people to get a fresh start to rebuild their lives.
It sounds like he dedicated his whole career to empowering people to overcome these financial challenges.
Absolutely. And that dedication led him to create Geraci Law, a firm that's really become synonymous with helping people navigate bankruptcy and find debt relief.
Yeah, it sounds like a place where people can turn when they feel lost and hopeless.
It really is. And get this, Geraci Law has helped over 900,000 people find debt-free options.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a huge impact. He's clearly not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And what really strikes me is that Geraci Law really emphasizes being approachable and understanding. They describe themselves as nice people doing nice things for nice people, and that really comes through in how they work.
That's so important. The legal and financial world can be so intimidating. It sounds like they've created this culture of empathy and support.
Definitely. And they even offer a free credit counseling course, which really shows their commitment to educating people about their options.
That's amazing. Where can our listeners find this course?
It's available on their website, insotapes.com. It's a great resource for anyone who wants to learn more about bankruptcy, credit, debt, and how to make those smart financial decisions.
Perfect. We'll make sure to include that link in the show notes for everyone. Well, this brings our deep dive into debt consolidation to a close. And the biggest takeaway for me is this. You are not alone. If you're struggling, there is help out there. Don't be afraid to ask for it.
I completely agree. Remember, you have options. You have the power to regain control of your financial future.
That's right. Knowledge is power. Educate yourself, seek guidance from trusted sources like Geraci Law, and make those choices that work for your long-term goals. You got this.